Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I'm going to be doing another video of a thing like Goosebumps. This is another one of my other videos that I talk about all the time about strange tales. This is issue number 8. Or is it? No, it's number 7. Excuse me, number 7. It says it right there and I messed up. Anyway, Strange Tales number 7. This is mostly a really good issue, and it's gotten to the point where now, as I read more of these Strange Tales issues, they're relatively consistent about quality. Very few of the portions of this book, this particular issue, I would say, are actually bad. Of course, these are a short story comic book collection, probably somewhere between 5 and 7 pages long for each little short story. There's usually about 6. There's 6 in this particular issue of the stories, I mean. I typically have a really fun time and a blast reading these. They're usually just enjoyably fun, silly stuff. A lot of the time it feels more like the EC Comics Tales from the Crypt type of stuff, which is up my alley as well. I love Tales from the Crypt's TV show. I've never really read the comics too much, but I have seen bits and pieces here and there. But anyway, moving along to the first story is called My Brother Talks to Bats. The artwork in My Brother Talks to Bats is great. It's absolutely fantastic. Essentially, this story involves a fellow telling us about his brother who's chained up in the basement. And it's kind of got this weird Richard Matheson I Am Legend feel to it. It's a really wild story. It might even be inspired by that. I don't know. It might be the inspiration for I Am Legend. I don't know entirely, but I actually really enjoy it for the most part. I think it's a mostly great story, just watching what happened with this guy. And is he some kind of vampire? You know, what's the deal with this brother? Why does the family have him chained up? And why does the family, especially this little bug-eyed freak right here, why do they keep talking about him in such a weird way? It's really interesting, and it took a little while to get interesting, but when it really got interesting, it was fun. If I had to rate My Brother Talks to Bats on a 5-star basis, I'd probably give the episode, listen to me, I'd probably give that particular section of the issue probably I'd say about a 4 out of 5. It was pretty good, in my opinion. Not the best thing I've ever read, but it was pretty good. The next story in here is actually a little eerie. Honestly, it was pretty dark. Pretty dark. Not the best artwork. It's mostly okay. I would say it's mostly good, even. It's called He Wished He Was a Vampire. There's basically this guy who is obsessed with vampires, and he's actually starting off the film watching a vampire flick. He seems a little off, this particular person that's watching the movie, and he has this obsession with vampires in general. And he even has like an abusive father who beats him and stuff, and the story evolves into this really nutty, wild thing, but it's actually kind of creepy. Like I said, there's just a little bit of an eerie tone to it, and a darkness just thick enough to bother you while you read this. Gotta tell you, He Wished He Was a Vampire is a really solid story. I don't want to tell you too much of any of these stories because I don't want to spoil them too much for you, but this is a really interesting one that's worth talking about and worth reading, I would say. Out of this whole Volume 1 collection that I'm reading on this Kindle, digital, whatever you want to call it, this was a really unique one. I enjoyed this a lot. If I had to rate that particular story, I'd probably give it about a 3 out of 5, but a pretty high 3 out of 5. It's pretty fun. It's nothing like The Eye, that old story I talked about in, I think it was issue number 4. It's nothing compared to that, but it's pretty good. Pretty good, pretty fun, even. If you like this kind of stuff, like Goosebumps and The Twilight Zone and all these things that I talk about, Tales from the Crypt, if you like these things, you'll like these books, these issues, whatever. I think you'll enjoy them typically. Now, of course, we always have, in the middle of Strange Tales books, or issues, whatever, where you have this one story that'll be written in the middle of the book that is actually written out like a short story, and it's usually about 2 pages long. This one happens to be back-to-back and doesn't make you read a page and then read an entire story and then come back to finish the story, which I hate. I don't know why these issues do that sometimes, but it doesn't make you do that this time. This one's called The Strange Hat, and The Strange Hat, it sucks, in my opinion. I'm still confused about what exactly happened by the end of the story. I don't know why. I don't get it. I don't understand exactly what happened. I don't understand why this story was even worth submitting. You know, these stories are not fascinating. They're not really the most incredible things you're ever going to read. But for somebody like myself who likes more of children's comic and book entertainment, like with Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark and stuff like that, this is more on my level of where I enjoy things. And some of these stories from the past issues have been terrifying. Just these written out stories. They've had some really good ones in the past. One of the ones that comes to mind, actually, is the couple who goes through the creepy caverns that have the faces and stuff popping up in them with their tour guide. That was a really good one. I don't remember which issue that was, but that was a really good issue with a really good story in there with that one. The Strange Hat is just stupid. It's basically two friends, one writing to another who is concerned about the first person that he's writing to, who happens to be like a professor who left London and went out to work in like Africa, like deep Africa. And whilst this one professor is out in Africa, he actually has to learn how to shrink heads. Like, not like a psychologist, but just shrink actual heads, like shrunken heads, like how I got my shrunken head from Goosebumps. And the story has nothing going for it, honestly. I actually thought it was going to get somewhere, that by the end of the story it would be really good. To me, it didn't get anywhere. I honestly don't like the story at all. I don't know who wrote it, because a lot of these stories aren't listed for who wrote it or anything, from what I can tell. When they finally start showing that, I will mention who wrote this or who wrote that, and, praise them or deny them, anything like that. But in this case, this story sucks so bad. It is easily, probably, I would say, the worst of the written short stories out of all of these tales, strange tales, whatever, issues that I've read, honestly. It just, if anybody happens to prefer this one, please let me know in the comment section what you loved about this one. I don't get it. If I had to rate The Strange Hat on a 5-star basis, I'd easily give it like a 1 out of 5. The whole idea of the shrunken heads thing was interesting to me, and then they just wasted. It wasn't really utilized the way I thought it should be. And to have, after that, the next story in the book be so fantastic and so tense and so creepy and fun as the next story is Tap, Tap, Tap. This was one of the most amazing stories I've read in Strange Tales so far. I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. Probably my favorite in the whole issue. I don't know, as I go through these, I'll look to see which one's my favorite. I'm pretty much leaning towards this one being my favorite. It was fantastic. Such a good morality tale, too. But to have The Strange Hat be so awful, and then to go to this being so great. I mean, all the stories in these issues can't always be winners, but this one's a winner. This is one of the highlights of the entire issue, if not Strange Tales in total. Tap, Tap, Tap is a weird title, but it'll make great sense to you in a moment. Basically, there is a military group, I guess. There's like a commander guy and his team, and they have a submarine. And of course, they have a guy outside of the submarine actually working on the submarine, because they're in a situation right now, they're being attacked. They need to sink to the bottom of the ocean, or whatever they're at, sea, I don't know what they're at. But they have to go to the bottom of the water body that they're in. And they get in a situation where they're in such a panic, and the commander leader guy is so mean that he basically locks the man who's working on the submarine from the outside. He locks him outside, and basically the man holds on to the submarine itself and sinks to the bottom with them. They didn't know this, though. And of course, the way these boats work and the way these subs work and all that, whoever's coming after them also has sonar. And if you make any loud noises at all, even inside of the submarine, it will be picked up on the sonar itself. And they're hoping that as quiet as it could be, that they could get away and just sit still down at the bottom of the water and just hope the other ships go by. Well, then there's this tapping noise that starts on the outside of the submarine, and the people inside of the submarine from the military can hear this noise. And they don't really understand what it is. They don't know what could possibly be making that noise outside in the water and be so loud as it is. And they're afraid it's going to blow their cover. And it kind of has this feeling of Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. It works really well. It's like a weird modernized version of that, and it works incredibly well. I don't know what it is. It's just if you've read the short story, or this issue in total, you know what tension I'm talking about. For some reason, that secluded, isolated feeling just builds into this really scary story that works so well, and to find out whatever the tapping noise is outside is also creepy too. I love the twist at the end. I think the twist is fantastic, and like I said, the overall story is more of a morality tale than anything about the way we treat people, I loved it. I thought it was so great. I thought it was one of the most impressive stories I've read, in the execution and everything. Even the art was great here. If I had to rate Tap, Tap, Tap on a 5-star basis, it would easily get a 5 out of 5. It's fantastic. It is such a good story. But moving along to the next story in here, this was also a really good one that I enjoyed. It's not as good as Tap, 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 but it is good nonetheless. This is Who Stands in the Shadows. Oops. Who Stands in the Shadows? And yes, this man is like on fire, like hellfire type stuff. Really eerie. Anyway, Who Stands in the Shadows? Basically, a man married this woman for her money, And she has this mansion thing, and she wants to move out into a smaller home. She's tired of living in this big house. And the husband has all these issues. The husband's also our main character here. He has issues because he doesn't want to move out. He just loves his wife for the money. That's it. And basically, he decides he's going to kill her, but he comes across a person that he hears out in his yard. It's a very short man, very creepy man. He apparently left a note for the man to meet him somewhere else. And so the husband goes to meet this man, and they kind of plot to kill this wife in a weird, spectacular way. Over near this house that's over in the street, they're going to pretend to light it on fire and actually have the wife go inside to look at it because it would be a smaller house that she might want to see to buy. And it's a really wild story, and the ending is really wild too. I don't know how many people would love the ending as much as I did. I thought the ending was really cool. I could see a lot of people saying it's not that good, it's a little goofy, but I liked it. I thought it was good, and I think the art's really good too for this particular section of the issue itself. I liked it a lot. If I had to rate Who Stands in the Shadows on a 5-star basis, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. It has a little bit of a morality tale going for it about what you take for granted and how you treat people a little bit. There's a big theme of that, and there's a big theme of vampires throughout this issue for whatever reason. Not in this particular issue, there's no vampire thing, but still, the first 2 stories in this whole issue focused on vampires. It's a little weird to me. But Who Stands in the Shadows was a really good story, like I said. Like the art throughout this issue in total, throughout all these stories, has been really good for the most part, I would say. For some reason, it just jumped in quality out of nowhere. I don't know why that happened, but it did. And the books had only been coming out for maybe a year by this time. Close to it is in the first year. By the time the art started jumping up in quality so high to where it was. I'm really impressed with it, especially in this next story and the final story of the book called TheHorrible Man. I really like this one. This is a really good one of the best I've read too in this series. Again, good art. It's not the best. It's not as good as like My Brother Talks to Bats or whatever it was, the first story in this issue. The art-wise, I mean. But the story itself I actually really love. Basically, there's a guy who is very pudgy, very big, like myself, maybe bigger than me even, and he has a lot of money. He's a very rich man, and he has this Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Carol kind of vibe to him, where he is just very mean-spirited just to be mean-spirited. He feels like you should earn your way because he had to earn his way to being wealthy as well. And yeah, you could argue there's a little bit of a political aspect to that, and there kind of is. It also involves a little bit of I can't even talk. It involves a little bit of a morality thing as well for this particular issue, or section of the issue. This story I actually really, really like. Now, as this town starts having problems, like a rat infestation, for example, this man, the horrible man, the very rich man, goes to an old witch and kind of talks to her about how to get rid of all these rats and stuff. You know, how to come up with some potions that she could give him to take out these things. And at first, they're kind of in agreement, the witch and the rich man. And then they kind of get on a bad note the second time he goes to visit her, because there becomes more problems happening in the town. And it kind of just keeps developing. The story is very wild, but I will tell you this. I really like it. I really like what it's saying about the moral to the whole story. But the finale is so eerie and unnerving in my opinion. I loved it. I thought it was great. That particular story is a little bit different. I think a lot of Goosebumps readers that would read this particular issue and come to that story, they might think it's a little slow, especially if you're a younger reader who can't focus for 6 pages. It might take a little bit of time for it to develop for you, but I honestly think the last panel of the story is so unnervingly creepy with the art style and everything else. It just works really great. I really love The Horrible Man. If I had to rate this particular short story or whatever on a 5-star basis, I'd give it a 5 out of 5 as well. It's a very, very good one. I do think, though, like I said earlier, I do think that, what was that one story called? Tap, Tap, Tap. I think Tap, Tap, Tap is my favorite in the entire issue now that I look through these again. Tap, Tap, Tap is just timeless. I mean, it's like a timeless, I would say it's timeless in the sense of being a classic like the Twilight Zone episodes typically are, where there's certain episodes, like the one about the man who wants to read all the time and the world gets blown up. That particular episode of the Twilight Zone is a classic, timeless episode with a moral and a message that every human should have to watch that and learn from that. It's so powerful. It's so important, you know? And Tap, Tap, Tap has kind of the same thing, I would say, in my opinion. It's fantastic. One of the best ever. Now, when it comes to issue number 7 of Strange Tales, I highly recommend this. As you can tell, it's a very, very good issue in total. If I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, which is an overall summary of all of the story's ratings in total, I'd give it a 4 out of 5, in my opinion. It's very good, even though you have that really awful written short story about the shrunken heads thing. I just would avoid that. The Strange Hat just was not good. It was just, I don't know what it is. I hate to keep harping on that. It sucked. I don't know what it was about it. There's something about that particular short story that just was not good, in my opinion. I don't know how to express it enough. I would love to hear if somebody else could explain to me why they loved it so much, if they did. If that person does exist out there, which I'm sure they do, because there's many people out there. If somebody is out there who loves The Strange Hat, please let me know down in the comments section down below. Anyway, when it comes to Strange Tales number 7, like I said, I'd give it a 4 out of 5 in total overall for me for this issue. Very good, especially Tap 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 and TheHorrible Man. Very, very good. What are your thoughts on this issue if you have read it? Put your thoughts and comments down below, guys, on my review and on the issue itself. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble along like I always do in every video that I pretty much put up on YouTube. That's just my style. That's kind of the style YouTube used to be, and that's what I embrace. Anyway, and I'm also lazy, so that's why. Anyway, thank you for watching. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and look forward to more, I can't even talk. I'm sorry. It's like 4:30 in the morning right now. Look forward to more Strange Tales reviews at some point, God willing, if I get a chance to read some more on my breaks at work or anything. Because usually when I'm home, I'm reading everything else, all the Goosebumps stuff. When I'm at work, I'm reading Strange Tales because the stories are very fast. I can read one on a break, sometimes 2 on a break, and be done, and then come home and talk about it to people who watch them. Anyway, there aren't many people who care about Strange Tales. I think it's really good. I think if you love Goosebumps, you'll like it as well. So check it out, guys. Anyway, God bless you today, and goodbye.